Well, right now, New Mexico ranks near the bottom in the rankings on the nation's report card, which is the nation's most reliable set of testing data that's given to samples of students in all 50 states. New Mexico is near the bottom, so is my home state of Arizona. But the good news is that we've actually seen a few states, not very many, nationwide, our test scores and academic achievement is kind of flatlining. But there's a big exception, and that exception is Florida. Florida is a state that has a lot of similarities to New Mexico. New Mexico actually spends more per pupil in their public school system than Florida does. New Mexico has a majority-minority K-12 demographic profile. So does Florida. New Mexico has a lot of kids that qualify for a free reduced lunch based on their family income. So does Florida. And in 1998, say the late 1990s, both Florida and New Mexico scored below the national average and near the bottom in the nation's report card. Today, Florida has made an enormous amount of progress. They're not near the bottom anymore. They're near the top, so much so that in fourth grade reading on the nation's report card, Florida's Hispanic students outscored 31 statewide averages for all students. So that includes New Mexico. Florida's African American students outscored or tied 8 different statewide averages, including New Mexico. Florida's free and reduced lunch eligible Hispanics, low-income Hispanic students in Florida, are reading about a grade level better than the statewide average for all students in New Mexico. So Florida has made an enormous amount of progress. New Mexico has kind of been flatlining, bouncing kind of flat on the bottom of the rankings. So there's a lot that New Mexico could learn from Florida. Florida has transparency and accountability. People in Florida understand how their schools are doing. The schools get clear labels from the state, which are A, B, C, D, or F. Most states use fuzzy descriptors like, performing or performing plus or needs improvement. You don't get the same reaction to needs improvement that you do to an F. Florida also curtailed the social promotion of children who don't have the basic literacy skills they need. There's absolutely nothing more cruel that you can do to a kid than not teach them how to read and then send them into middle school so that they can become frustrated and bored and drop out in 8th grade. That's what's happening now. You're not doing these kids any favors by socially promoting them. Florida put an end to that. They're keeping kids back until they learn the skills they need, and they're very much benefiting from that. Florida is the #1 state in the country for parental choice. They have the biggest tax credit program to help low-income kids go to private schools. They have the biggest voucher program, which is for children with special needs and disabilities. It's the biggest voucher program in the country. They have a very strong charter school law, and they're also the nation's leader in virtual schooling. Alternative teacher certification is a great way to get talented people into the teaching profession. A lot of retired engineers would like to teach a math class. In Florida, half of the new teachers are taking a test, proving that they know the subject matter, and then being allowed into the teaching profession. And what this is doing is getting more high-quality teachers into the classroom, especially in high-need schools that typically don't get very many of the limited supply of high-quality teachers. Most of the high-quality teachers gravitate out to the suburbs. In Florida, we have a new source for them. So Florida did a lot of different things all at the same time. The school grading, the parental choice, the social promotion action, the alternative teacher certification. They created financial incentives for success. They created sanctions for failure. And when they did all of this, what you find out is that everyone made big learning gains. Anglos made big learning gains. Hispanics, African Americans, kids on the high end are doing better. Kids on the low end are doing a lot better. But the bottom line is that the Miami-Dade School District, which is 91% Hispanic and African American, in 2009 scored higher in fourth grade reading than the statewide average for all students in Oregon, which is very wealthy and very pale. It is the case that right now Hispanics are not doing very well in school. It is also the case, however, that the expectation that they cannot do better in school, I would argue, is de facto racism. Demography, so to speak, is not destiny in schooling. We have a clear example of a state that has radically improved the learning of Hispanic students, low-income Hispanic students, African-American students, low-income urban African-American students, whatever challenging demographic profile that you want to talk about, it's there in Florida, And those kids are doing a much better job learning reading and math now than they were back in the late 1990s. The reforms that Florida put in place have benefited all students. They've benefited disadvantaged students more. So you see things like racial achievement gaps starting to close, right? But the bottom line is there's absolutely nothing about a child's skin color that precludes them from learning how to read, and they have to learn how to read. Florida chose to, in a very stark, focused way, to focus on early childhood literacy. The kids are the big winners in this, and other states should follow Florida's example. Well, I think what people need to understand is that putting more money into a broken system is not the solution. New Mexico already spends more than Florida does right now and is not getting anything like the kind of results. New Mexico, Arizona, my state, there are a lot of people running around always saying, well, gee, Connecticut spends $20,000 per pupil per year. And my response to that is always, well, Connecticut is full of old money and hedge fund billionaires and has a high income tax rate that we're not going to see out here. And besides, when you take that $20,000 a kid and give it to the school district in Hartford, where the wealthy Anglo kids are not, and where Connecticut's African Americans are, what you see is the biggest racial achievement gap in the entire country in Connecticut. Throwing $20,000 at a child is not an automatic solution to the problem. In fact, it's been an abject failure. Okay, what we need to do is to wring more value out of every dollar we put into the system, not just put more dollars in. Before you reform the system, putting more money in is like putting more water into a leaky bucket, right? We keep doing this in this country. For the last 30 years, we keep spending more and more and more per pupil, even after you adjust for inflation. Okay, and the results don't improve, right? Schooling is not about inputs, it's about outputs, right? And we need to focus the conversation on not on how do we put some more money in. We need to focus the conversation on, well, we spend over $9,000 per kid per year, and 44% of these kids in New Mexico are scoring below basic on fourth grade reading. You can't have that. Right? Why would you want to put more money into a system that is just demonstrating abject failure? Show me some success, and then maybe we can talk about more resources down the road. In Florida, what they've done is they make the schools earn their additional money through things like cash bonuses for AP exams. Right? If you get a child to pass one or more AP exams in Florida, the state gives the school $700. Right? So it's sort of like E.F. Hutton. They get their money the old-fashioned way. They earn it, right? Rather than let's just give you more money to keep doing the things you'd already been doing that haven't been working out so well. And when we ask why it's not working out so well, your response is, well, we need more money. What New Mexico needs to do is, number one, you need to revamp your testing system. You need to have truth in advertising. You need to tell people the bitter truth. When their kids are attending failing schools, they need to have the courage to call them D's or F's. You need to increase parental choice options. You need to improve your charter school law. You need to create a tax credit program to help kids go to private schools. You need to do more in virtual schooling. You need to do alternative teacher certification. And in fact, what I would urge New Mexico is to understand is that the Florida reforms were state of the art in 1999. And it's 2010 now, and we have the benefit of looking back at their success. So what you're shooting for should not be, let's do what Florida did in 1999. What you ought to be doing is saying, okay, Florida did this in 1999 and it worked. We ought to be doing 2 or 3 times more than what Florida did, taking even bolder action, and the sooner the better, because in New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, we don't have a moment to waste. We're very fortunate now in 2010. We don't have to sit around and have theoretical arguments about what works. We know it works. We can see it in the nation's report card data. Now our task is simply to go out and do what we know works.